Hello, John Oliver. You recently gave a 20-minute talk about President Trump's use of tariffs. As always, you were very funny. But we noticed that you made a few mistakes in your analysis of trade. We'd like to help you gain a better understanding of the issue. Note that the Coalition for a Prosperous America is a bipartisan organization made up of manufacturers, labor unions, and farm groups. We're not pro-Trump, but he actually is right about a few things. So here goes. You said Americans will pay for the tariffs imposed by the president. That's not actually true. In fact, it's basic economics that every tax is paid partly by the producer and partly by the consumer. When there is an alternative product in the market, such as one made by an American producer, then the foreign producer will cut his price because he wants to maintain a presence in the US market. So both sides end up splitting the cost. That's exactly what's happening right now with Huawei in solar inverters. The Chinese manufacturer would like to dominate the US market for inverters. Huawei has close links to the Chinese military and has received billions of dollars of Chinese government subsidy. It's been banned by the Pentagon from selling internet equipment in the United States. A couple years ago, its engineers were caught stealing test equipment from T-Mobile's lab in Seattle. So now it sells smartphones in Best Buy. It recently claimed its new Nova 3i takes the best selfies you can take with a smartphone. The only problem was the selfies weren't actually taken with a Huawei Nova 3i. They were taken with a $5,000 Canon DSLR camera. The actress in the ad, Sarah El-Shami, didn't get the memo. She posted this shot on her Instagram. When Huawei found out, she got a visit from two very large gentlemen from Huawei. She was definitely having a bad day that day. She took down all her Instagram shots of the ad. And just for the record, Sarah El-Shami's personal phone is an American Apple iPhone. Thank you, Sarah El-Shami. Now, Huawei is thinking of pulling its government-subsidized inverters out of the US market. That would leave the market to two US manufacturers, SolarEdge and Enphase. That wouldn't be so bad, John, would it? Now, you also said that tariffs would cause job losses in the future, and you quoted some horrendously large figures. You know, there's an old saying in the economics profession. Economists don't make forecasts because they're good at it. They make forecasts because they get paid a lot of money to do it. In fact, we at the CPA have done the only accounting of actual committed job gains and job losses due to Trump tariffs so far. What we've found is that the tariffs are creating 11,000 US jobs and eliminating just 514 as of today. That's a 20-to-1 ratio in favor of jobs created by tariffs. Job creation makes sense because tariffs stimulate domestic production. That's exactly what they're designed to do. It's really not very hard to understand that. Even my dog Bindi understands that. Although she understands it better now that she's digested Keynes's general theory. John, you said that President Trump was dreaming when he quoted a figure of $800 billion for our trade deficit. It's really not nice to make fun of a man just because you disagree with him, especially when he's stuck in a job in hot, swampy Washington, far from his cozy little home in New York City. Trump was actually referring to our goods deficit, which was $807 billion last year. Like Donald Trump, many of us are concerned with goods trade because more jobs are created making goods than producing services. In fact, economists estimate that each $1 billion added to our trade deficit means an additional 6,000 jobs lost. So, the $552 billion trade deficit you quite rightly identified on your show accounts for about 3.3 million American jobs lost. And you're right also that this isn't just about manufacturing. America's farmers have been drawn into the picture because China has chosen to retaliate against our agricultural sector. But you're a bit late in caring about America's farmers. Agricultural prices have been falling for years, and American farm incomes are down by more than 50% in the last 5 years. And yet, many of them do actually support the tariffs.
Hello, I'm Bill Bullard, CEO of RCAF USA, the largest U.S. trade association representing farmers and ranchers that raise cattle. We strongly support the Trump administration's trade reform policies, including tariffs, that will help us rebalance trade and put an end to the unfair practices of foreign countries. You know, we've lost over 500,000 cattle producers while pursuing failed trade policies in the United States, policies that were inviting unlimited supplies of undifferentiated imports into this country. This has promoted overproduction and overcapacity in foreign countries. It has reduced our domestic prices, it has displaced our domestic production, and it has weakened our domestic supply chains, thus causing a hollowing out of rural communities all across America. If we put tariffs on goods from countries that maintain persistent trade surpluses, we would allow our industry to recover, we would begin producing more of what we consume, and we would create more jobs because the increased production would require more manufacturing. Tariffs are good for U.S. agriculture.
Look, John, it's admirable that you can get laughs out of a dry subject like trade economics. But the really fundamental point where you bought the free traders' propaganda, hook, line, and sinker, is that everybody wins from trade. It's just not true. If it was, our country and your country would have voted differently in 2016. If you look at the surplus nations, you find stronger economic growth, more manufacturing, more jobs, a movement towards greater equality of incomes, and political harmony. You even see new dance crazes and men getting facials. But if you look at the deficit nations, you see widespread job loss, deindustrialization, awful music, and men without anything to do all day. John, we think it's fantastic that your great-great-grandfather was the court chaplain to Queen Victoria. You should be proud. But remember that it was under Her Majesty Queen Victoria that the British government first took action to help workers with limits on working hours and restrictions on children working in factories. Today, America and Britain haven't lost jobs because of automation. That's a minor factor. We've lost jobs because China and other Asian countries are employing people at pennies an hour, including children, in unacceptable conditions. Your iPhone was not made by a robot. It was made by thousands of workers at a Foxconn plant in China who are literally required to sign a pledge that they won't kill themselves in the face of cruel working conditions and dormitory living not too far removed from slave labor. You are absolutely right to point out that China cheats by undervaluing its currency, restricting imports, and unfairly subsidizing exports. So, which side are you on, John? Our country's run a deficit for 42 years. Your country's run a deficit for 20 years. Every economics textbook says that just can't happen. Even Bindi knows something is wrong with our trading system, and she's been studying very hard lately. Meanwhile, China's run a surplus for 25 years. It's built up its army and its navy, and it's laughed at us behind our backs. John, it's time to stand up for American workers, farmers, and the corporations dedicated to providing Americans long-term employment with decent pay and conditions. It's time to fix U.S. trade and rebuild our economy. Here's to you, John. You're a funny guy.